And we're back here at Boom and Bust with our expert panel, monthly panel. We've got the Honourable Joe Oliver, the Honourable Gary Marr, and Sandra Pupatello. Joe, I had to cut you off there, but please continue with your analysis of the carbon tax climb down.
Yeah, I was talking about the political motivation, which I think everybody recognizes. And of course, you put it in the context of the collapsing poll numbers for the Liberal Party. It certainly looks like a matter of desperation. But I think the Prime Minister was hoping it wouldn't quite be noticed in the way that it clearly has. And I think people are viewing this as really a very serious climb down of a central policy by the government, which a lot of people hated, but nevertheless understood that was a big deal for the Prime Minister. And so it looks very unprincipled, and it's frankly adding to the what looked like terminal political problems for him.
Sandra, is this just politics, or is there something more going on here?
Well, I do think what happened this month was, if you look on a map, Atlantic Canada is further north than most of the population in the country, and they get winter first. And the cold has hit that province or provinces. And when you look at a heating bill that's heating oil related, it is a very different bill from what I pay in Windsor, Ontario, with a natural gas heating home. And, not to make excuses, but everybody was looking for the climb down. And then when they see one, all they do is berate them for it. So, you got to pick your spot. Did you want it or didn't you want it? But in the grand scheme of things, it is a small percentage of the population where this change has been made for them. An equal number in Ontario, by the way, as in Atlantic Canada, because 250,000 or so are on heating oil in Ontario as well. Okay. And you haven't heard Premier Ford with the demonstrations that you've heard from Premier Moe. And that's because people with heating oil, it's a very expensive bill. You have to buy it in advance. You pay thousands of dollars to fill a tank, if you can get it on time. It's a very different environment than what we're used to in most of southern Canada, where most of the population lives. So in fairness, once they see the bill, policy is one thing, but when you have an actual utility bill showing the impact, I think everybody had to take a step back and say, okay, you know what? We need to focus on getting these people off of oil and onto a much, not totally clean, but much cleaner form of energy. And I think that's what's happened. It's made them take stock and say, okay, we need to redouble our efforts to get these people off of oil and onto even natural gas as the stepping stone is a much, much cleaner method to heat your home.
Sandra, do you expect any further rollbacks or climb downs on the net zero plans from this government?
I don't really, because now we're looking at 95% of the rest of us that are supposed to use this carbon tax as a method to be extremely conscious of the energy we use and use less and use cleaner. And that's really the point of it. I want to be incentivized for my behavior. And everybody knows that the best way to incent behavior is, do you have to pay more, therefore you'll use less. And that's really the point. For these 250,000 in Atlantic Canada, 250,000 or so in Ontario, we need to redouble our efforts to get them off of oil. And I think that's the focus of this conversation. I hope that even the environmentalists are going to realize that's a good plan. Let's get on with it.
Gary, do you see any more climb downs? There's a lot of pressure from the premiers.
There's a lot of pressure that is coming from the premiers. And I'm sure all of them are looking at what the possibilities are for, saying that this kind of a policy and its the asymmetrical impact on Canadians is whether it's constitutional or not. It is a remarkable climb down, and there is an enormous amount of pressure. And I guess my response to Sandra would be, this was all pretty predictable in 2015. So if after 8 years you haven't been successful in moving people off of home heating oil onto something like natural gas, much lower GHG emission profile, or heat pumps, or whatever it is that you want to heat your home with. They've had 8 years to do it, and hasn't looked very good. The track record is not very good.
The environment is a bit different now.
And you're providing an incentive for people to continue to use home heating oil for at least the next 3 years. And are you going to be able to change, as you say, 500,000 houses over to heat pumps in the span of the next 3 years? I would argue that the answer is probably no.